December 3rd, 2025, 11:37 p.m., Belmont Road, Southampton. The asphalt is freezing, slick with winter rain. A flashing blue light cuts through the darkness. Bodycam footage captures 18-year-old Henry Novak slumped against a brick wall, his chest saturated with dark arterial blood. He gasps for air, whispering,
What is that?
Right, let's get you out of there, shall we? Oh.
I was in bed asleep. Whenever just find me up there, look, someone's attacked me.
I can't breathe.
Grab his other arm.
The responding police officer stands over him, hands on his belt, offering a cold, institutional reply. No, you haven't, mate. As Henry suffocated on his own blood, the system designed to protect him was already falling victim to a calculated deception. Minutes earlier, a fraudulent emergency call had poisoned the dispatch. Gurpreet Digwa had called 999, reporting a minor, non-weapon racial assault. While Henry was aggressively handcuffed behind his back under suspicion of hate crimes, the true perpetrator, Vikram Singh Digwa, stood feet away, untouched, comforted by responding officers who bought the lie. This is the anatomy of a catastrophic systemic failure and a chilling family conspiracy. Henry Novak was a brilliant pacifist counting student. His executioner was a radicalized teenager, obsessed with blade culture. This case exposes how social protection narratives can be weaponized to mask a murder, how a secret Punjabi conversation inside a police vehicle almost buried the truth, and how a dying boy's Snapchat video became the ultimate voice from beyond the grave. To understand how an innocent teenager ended up dying in handcuffs while his killer watched, we must step back into the dark corridor of Vikram Singh Digwa's psychological evolution. Long before the confrontation outside the Hobbit pub on Belmont Road, 19-year-old Vikram was developing a dangerous, insatiable obsession with bladed weapons, a fixation that local religious authorities had recognized and actively tried to neutralize before it was too late. In mid-2023, Vikram Digwa was formally expelled from his local Gurdwara in Southampton. This was not a minor disciplinary dispute. Religious elders had grown deeply alarmed by his behavior. Vikram was consistently violating the sacred, peaceful principles of his heritage by carrying oversized, non-traditional knives into spiritual spaces, weaponizing cultural symbols to intimidate others, and feeds his escalating delusions of violent grandeur. Criminologists who analyzed Digwa's early behavior identified clear markers of behavioral escalation. He was not collecting historical artifacts. He was amassing an arsenal designed specifically for close-quarters lethality. His digital footprint revealed hours spent browsing online forums dedicated to knife combat, paired with a growing resentment toward anyone he perceived as a threat to his fragile, hyper-masculine ego. The stage was set for a catastrophic trigger. That trigger arrived on the night of December 3rd, 2025. Henry Novak had been spending a casual evening with friends at the Hobbit, a popular student establishment in Portswood. Known as a gentle, charismatic young man, Henry was an accomplished local athlete and an academic high achiever. He had no history of violence, no criminal record, and no understanding of the volatile nature of the individual he was about to cross paths with outside the venue. By 11:30 p.m., the atmosphere outside the pub shifted dramatically. An argument erupted over a minor verbal misunderstanding, the kind of trivial friction that occurs outside nightlife venues every weekend. But while Henry sought to de-escalate the tension with words, Vikram Digwa reached beneath his heavy winter coat. He was carrying a concealed Indo-Persian peshkabz, a traditional armor-piercing dagger boasting a devastating 21-centimeter blade. In these crucial seconds, Henry Novak did something extraordinary that would later dismantle an entire family's legal defense. Sensing the immediate threat, he pulled out his phone and began recording a Snapchat video. This was not an act of modern vanity. It was an intuitive attempt to document documentation of an imminent crime. The footage captured the dark silhouette of Digwa stepping forward, the long wicked blade glinting under the streetlights. The audio recorded on Henry's phone is chilling in its stark clarity. Henry can be heard asking, his voice remarkably steady despite the circumstances, "Are you a bad man?" Vikram Digwa does not hesitate. He steps into the frame, fixes his gaze on the lens, and responds with cold, terrifying certainty. "I am a bad man." Within seconds of that declaration, the verbal exchange dissolved into a swift, unrelenting physical onslaught. Digwa lunged forward with explosive, practiced violence. He inflicted 5 distinct stab wounds in rapid succession. The mechanics of the assault revealed a terrifying level of intent. These were not wild, defensive slashes, but calculated thrusts targeting vital areas. The most catastrophic blow penetrated the left supraclavicular notch, a precise and lethal vector where the blade sliced clean through Henry's subclavian vein before puncturing his lung. What followed the stabbing exposes the profound depravity of the attacker. As a severely wounded Henry futility attempted to escape, running down Belmont Road in a desperate bid for survival, Vikram Digwa did not flee immediately. Instead, he pulled out his own mobile phone. Digwa recorded a video of himself laughing, mocking the 18-year-old student as Henry tried to scramble over a commercial waste container to escape his pursuer. While Henry's life force was rapidly draining into his chest cavity, a secondary, highly coordinated criminal operation was initiated by the Digwa family. Vikram's brother, Gurpreet Digwa, and their mother, Kiran Kaur, arrived at the scene within minutes of the assault. They did not call for an ambulance to save the dying boy on the pavement. Their immediate singular priority was the systematic destruction of evidence and the creation of a bulletproof alibi. Kiran Kaur took the blood-stained Peshkab's dagger from her son's hands, concealed it within her clothing, and immediately drove it back to their family residence to clean and hide the weapon. Meanwhile, Gurpreet Digwa dialed 999. This call was a calculated psychological operation. Gurpreet claimed that he and his brother had been victims of an unprovoked, racially motivated attack by a gang of youths, deliberately shifting the narrative before police arrived.
Police emergency.
Yeah, we just been attacked by someone racially. Yeah, that's... sorry, we just got attacked racially by some white person.
Right, okay. Whereabouts are you?
We're on Belmont Road.
You talking about verbally or physically?
No, he physically attacked my brother. We're Sikhs, we wear turban, and he just attacked my brother.
Have any weapons been involved?
No.
When the first officers from Hampshire Constabulary arrived on Mont Road at 11:37 p.m., they were operating entirely under the cognitive bias injected by Gurpreet's fraudulent call. They expected a racial brawl where the suspects were fleeing and the victims remained. They found Henry Novak agonizing on the pavement. Because of the false report, officers instantly designated the dying, disarmado teenager as the primary aggressor in a hate crime. The physical intervention that followed was both medically catastrophic and profoundly tragic. Henry, unable to speak clearly due to a collapsing lung, managed to whisper his desperate plea. Yet the officers, blinded by the established narrative, performed a superficial physical assessment. They pulled his t-shirt up only to his navel, looking for abdominal wounds, completely missing the small but catastrophic supraclavicular puncture hidden near his collarbone. Believing Henry was merely hyperventilating or feigning injury after participating in a racial assault, the officers forced his arms behind his back and clicked metal handcuffs onto his wrists. This positioning pinned his shoulders back, accelerating the internal bleeding and further restricting his compromised respiratory mechanics. As Henry lay prone, losing consciousness, Vikram Digwa sat nearby on a low wall, receiving comforting words from another constable. By the time paramedics arrived, and discovered the true nature of Henry's injuries. The physiological damage was irreversible. The subclavian vein had been leaking massive volumes of blood directly into his thoracic cavity, compressing his heart and lungs. Henry Novak was pronounced dead shortly after arrival at Southampton General Hospital. An innocent life was extinguished, leaving behind a crime scene thoroughly contaminated by a complex web of lies. The immediate aftermath of Henry's death triggered a massive forensic and criminalistic mobilization by Hampshire Constabulary's major crime investigation team. Detectives quickly realized that the narrative provided by the Digwa brothers did not align with the physical reality of the scene. The turning point came within 48 hours, when digital forensic experts successfully recovered the Snapchat video from Henry's cloud backup, exposing the truth. With the Snapchat video providing irrefutable proof of premeditation and intent, the police executed a series of high-risk search warrants at the Digwa family home. What investigators uncovered inside transformed the case from an isolated street, stabbing into a terrifying look at a radicalized domestic environment. Hidden throughout the property was a vast, heavily curated arsenal of combat blades, historical warfare weapons, and tactical gear. Among the seized weapons was the murder weapon, the 21-centimeter Pesh Cabs. Forensics technicians noted that despite rigorous attempts by Kiran Kaur to chemically sanitize the dagger using industrial bleach, trace amounts of Henry Novak's DNA remained trapped within the micro-crevices where the steel tang met the handle. The physical evidence was absolute, but the family's defense strategy was already shifting toward a dangerous cultural defense. In May 2026, the trial opened at Southampton Crown Court. Vikram Digwa's defense team presented a highly controversial argument, claiming that the blade carried by the defendant was not an offensive weapon, but a Kirpana sacred religious dagger that practicing Sikhs are legally permitted to carry in public spaces under UK law. This defense attempted to frame the carrying of the weapon as a protected expression of faith rather than an act of criminal preparation. The prosecution, armed with precise criminalistic and historical expert testimonies, systematically dismantled this defense. Forensics experts demonstrated that the weapon was a historical Pesh Cabs, designed explicitly with a thick T-shaped spine to pierce heavy mail armor, a design entirely distinct from the symbolic, peaceful nature of a traditional kirpan. The argument was further crushed by prominent British Sikh members of Parliament who stood as experts for the state. Sikh MPs including Tanmanjeet Singh Desi, Preet Kaur Gill, and Jaseth Wall provided powerful statements to the court. They explicitly clarified that the weapon used to execute Henry Novak had nothing to do with the Sikh faith. They condemned the defense's attempt to exploit religious exemptions to shield an act of radicalized street violence, stating that protecting community safety and preserving the purity of religious symbols were paramount. The prosecution's case reached its definitive, devastating peak when they introduced the acoustic and digital evidence recovered from the Hampshire Constabulary patrol vehicle. Following the initial arrests, Vikram and Gurpreet Digwa had been placed in the rear of the same police car. Unbeknownst to them, the vehicle's internal cabin recording system was active, capturing every whisper, every sigh, and every calculated coordination of their story. The brothers spoke rapidly in Punjabi, believing the officers in the front seat could not understand them. Digital forensic translators spent weeks meticulously documenting the conversation. The transcripts revealed a cold, clinical coordination of a false self-defense narrative. Gurpreet was recorded instructing Vikram to claim Henry had struck first, explicitly planning how to align their stories with the fraudulent 999 call made earlier that night. The forensic pathologist who performed the post-mortem analysis provided the final somatic nail in the defense's case. He detailed that while the sheer speed and blood loss from the subclavian vein laceration meant Henry's death was likely inevitable, the subsequent treatment he endured, being aggressively forced into a prone position and handcuffed behind his back, inflicted immense unnecessary physical suffering during his final moments of life. The jury needed very little time to deliberate. The mountain of physical, digital, and acoustic evidence left no room for doubt. Vikram Singh Digwa was found guilty of murder and possession of an offensive weapon. His brother, Gurpreet Digwa, and their mother, Kiran Kaur, were convicted of perverting the course of justice for their coordinated roles in the encumbramiento operation. The legal retribution was swift, but the true impact of this tragedy was only beginning to ripple outward. Here, the cold mechanics of forensic reports and legal terminology must give way to a deeper, far more critical exploration, the devastating human cost of this crime. Henry Novak was not just a name on an indictment or a subject in an autopsy report. He was a young man of profound promise, a pillar of stability for his family, and a pacifist whose natural instinct in the face of aggression was to document, not to destroy. His loss left an unhealable void. The philosophical core of this tragedy lies in how easily the fabric of a community can be shattered behind ordinary urban facades. Criminological analysis shows that Vikram Digwa chose to weaponize modern social protection mechanisms, utilizing false claims of racial victimization as a strategic shield to perform and cover up a brutal execution. It is a chilling display of toxic manipulation that forces us to question the structural safety of our public spaces. The institutional trauma deepened significantly on June 2, 2026, when the official police bodycam footage was leaked to the public. The visual of a dying 18-year-old student being handcuffed on the cold asphalt while crying for air ignited a powder keg of societal anger. The failure of the first responders to perform an adequate triage became an immediate symbol of systemic negligence, transforming a local tragedy into an international flashpoint. Within days, violent civil unrest erupted across the Portswood district of Southampton. Angry crowds clashed with police lines, demanding immediate accountability and institutional reform. Among those arrested during the chaos was Connor Bishop, a local agitator captured by media cameras wearing a distinctive sweatshirt that read, "Boys get sad too." The imagery was a stark, ironic testament to how authentic human grief can be co-opted by elements seeking chaos. The narrative was quickly seized upon by international political figures. Commentators and politicians globally utilized Henry's tragic image to promote highly divisive political concepts, pushing theories of two-tier policing to claim that institutions systematically favor specific demographics over others. This geopolitical noise completely ignored the real empirical data of Hampshire Constabulary's stop and search records, reducing a real human life to a mere political token. But while the media roared and politicians attempted to exploit the violence, a powerful, profound contrast emerged from the epicenter of the grief. Henry Novak's parents, Mark Novak and Lucy Ross, stood before the microphones, not with words of vengeance or division, but with a message of absolute, devastating dignity. They refused to allow their son's legacy to be converted into ammunition for hatred, rising above the chaos with heartbreaking moral clarity. In an official statement that silenced the political noise, they declared, "We do not want Henry's death to be used to create more division, animosity, or tension in our communities. We want his story to serve as a mirror for our institutions, and a reminder that our streets must be made safe through justice and empathy, not through anger." Their words redirected the focus where it belonged, on the preservation of innocent life. The judge at Southampton Crown Court ultimately sentenced Vikram Singh Digwa to life imprisonment with a strict minimum term of 21 years before any eligibility for parole. While the physical perpetrator is now behind steel bars, the systemic scars left by the events of that December night remain wide open, raising a fundamental question about how our societies balance immediate security with analytical human empathy. Here at the Human Files, we believe that true justice begins by accurately preserving the memory of those who can no longer speak for themselves. We closely read every single comment left by our community, and we warmly invite you to share your deep thoughts on this case below. Is a minimum of 21 years a just retribution for a family conspiracy that cost an innocent life? Or did the structural failure of the response require a far more severe penal reform? Your voice and your analytical insights help keep this project completely independent, ensuring these vital stories are rescued from political noise and never forgotten. Please consider subscribing to the Human Files to support respectful, high-retention criminological investigative journalism. As the lights fade on Belmont Road, we are left to wonder how many ordinary facades in our own neighborhoods hide the very same shadows that claimed the life of Henry Novak. Stay safe. Stay alive.